following podcast contains real stories and raw conversations from first responders and military personnel. Some topics may be graphic or triggering. The views expressed by the host and the guests are their own and do not represent any agency or organization. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is Ralph Rosenbach. This is Carrie's uncle. He was a door gunner in Vietnam, and he's also the author of Just a Farm Kid. It is a phenomenal book. Just the first few chapters really just hooks you into it, and it really breaks your heart. But we want to welcome you on, and we appreciate you coming out, man.
Well, I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Everybody talks about Vietnam or military and PTSD, and I've known a number of people, first responders. In my opinion, every one of them or you guys suffer from PTSD also.
A portion of it, for sure. Absolutely.
So,
I think so as well.
So what you're doing is great.
Well, what you did was phenomenal. I feel like people can learn a lot of lessons out of your book. A lot of lessons.
Well, hopefully someone gets a positive message. And that was ultimately the goal, to tell people that keep your head up no matter what bad things happen. Don't give up. It'll be all right.
Absolutely.
God's got something in mind for you that better and bigger for you to do in the future.
Those are words you can live by 100%.
Oh.
Well, Ralph, let's talk a little about yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about your early life and kind of what shaped you?
Well, yeah, my early life is actually sometimes I have it kind of scares me how much recall I have on certain things, but it's when I was I'll retract that. For years, I would hear Brahms' lullaby and get very sad. I could never figure out why. And much later in life, someone said, "Well, yeah, that was played at your little brother's funeral."
Right.
Yeah, he died when it was just after birth, and I was 2 years old at the time, and I still remember them carrying the little white coffin out to the hearse, and my aunt said, "Well, that's a song they played." So to this day, it still affects me. But anyway, so fast forward, and when I was a week after my 4th birthday, I remember my dad coming home from work,
right.
And Mom said, go. He said, "Well, I'm going to lay down." Evidently, Mom said, "Okay, lunch is ready. Go get your dad." And I went in the bedroom to tell him to come out and eat lunch, and he didn't move, and he was. I could draw a picture today where he was lying on the floor. He had passed away.
Oh God.
So, and then things became kind of. Next thing I remember is sitting in a funeral home for.
Right.
At the time, they do a 2-day wake and all that kind of crazy stuff. But then it was fast forward to things were just going on, and we're moving along the normal life. But so I guess I'll backtrack a little. Couple crazy things before that. My dad had a general repair shop. After he was a World War II vet, was in Leyte, and then he came home and opened up a shop, and the house was on one side of a major road, and the shop was on the other. And one day I was on the house side, and they were telling me to come over where they were. I had my little red coaster wagon, like a lot of kids had, and ran across this. It was Route 1, and it was before any of the interstates were in, so there's a lot of truck traffic. And I remember running across, and all of a sudden I crashed, and people screaming, and my wagon was gone, and the truck ran over the wagon I was walking across the street with.
Ralph, you have a guardian angel, brother.
Well, yeah, I was at church a year or so ago, and a pastor was there after he read my book, and he said, "Yeah, God's been certainly keeping his hand on your whole life to keep you alive for all this stuff. You should have been dead so many times."
Right. So, that wouldn't be that being case in point.
I was just going to say, it seems like that was a constant theme throughout your life, is somebody always had a watch over you and had you in the right place at the right time or whatever.
There is absolutely no doubt. Yeah. And like the president, God was watching over me. And quite honestly, I spent a lot of my time wondering, okay, God has a purpose for me. What is it?
Right.
So anyway, just kept living life. And anyway, right after my dad passed away, things got kind of crazy. And I know I'm jumping around with my story, but anyway.
You're good, brother.
But I was at my mom's sister, aunt and uncle's house, and we were picking peas out of the garden. And I remember my maternal grandfather driving up in his car, and gets out of the car, walks up to me and says, "Well, your mom's gone. You're never going to see her again," and walked away.
Just like that.
Just like that. Went in and talked to his daughter and son-in-law, and I'm like, what does this mean? 4 years old, I don't know what that means to me.
Right.
So anyways, he said, "Well, you're coming back with me," and went back to his house, and just, well, okay, I guess I'm living here. Nobody explained what was really going on.
Oh, God.
The family's all crying, and the adults are all screaming and crying. I had a brother 2 years older and a sister 3 years older at the time. And evidently, my mother said goodbye to the two of them individually, and it just took off.
But not you.
Not me.
Oh.
Hey, shit happens.
Shit happens.
So anyway, so I'm living with my grandfather, it was actually not my grandmother, because my real grandmother died but many years before. So it was a step-grandmother, and she was not a pleasant person. And there was my grandfather, very poor farmer. And I can somewhat imagine now he's stuck with raising 3 kids, my brother, sister, and myself. It was, what do I do with these people? I can't afford to basically get by on my own.
Right.
So kind of a description of the farm. He was still farming he had 1 tractor and a team of horses, and we had electricity but no running water in the house, no central heat, and typical thing. And then I started at one point when school started back up. My brother and sister went to school. I was too young to go to school,
right.
And I didn't go to kindergarten, so he would have me help him on the farm. And I think back, and one of the things that sticks in my mind is we had cattle, so you'd have a barbed wire fence you put up, right? And you want to make the fence really tight. And now I think back, it scares me what he had me do. He had me in this John Deere tractor with the wire hooked to the back of the tractor and had me inching the tractor forward to get it tight.
At 4 years old?
At 4 years old.
He had a lot of trust in you.
Or he was really stupid. I don't know which. But nothing can go wrong here, right?
Yeah, exactly. What could go wrong?
Yeah, can we just mention how easily those tractors used to flip back then?
Well, they could, but if you hooked it on the drawbar like he did, if it got something really heavy, it would flip over backwards because of the pulling of the center of gravity and all that sort of thing. But more importantly, the wire would have probably broken, and if it would have, the coil would have gone back and it probably wouldn't have hurt me. It would depend on which way it broke,
right.
But it was really just not a bad thing to do. So, and he also, he said, well, I might as well use this kid for something. So, like, when we were planting corn, he would put the bags of seed corn and stuff and fertilizer in the back of his car. He'd drive out to the field, hook up a team of horses in the corn planter, and I'd sit on his corn planter and drive a team of horses out there following the car.
At 4 years old?
Yeah.
Driving a team of horses?
Yeah, well.
I'd be crapping my pants.
Well, I didn't know any better.
Right.
Nobody ever accused me of being very smart. So, so I did that, and anyway, just life went on. And when I was starting first grade, it took I did realize my brother and sister, they'd leave on Monday and come back on Friday. Well, I didn't really think about it much at the time. But when I was starting first grade, my grandfather took me into town, took me to people's house, and he said, "Okay, this is," give me the people's names, and you're going to be living here. We'll pick you up Friday night, and walked to school and started first grade, and it was a rooming house that was typically, the husband and wife lived there. Their kids were on their own, so they rented out their extra bedrooms, typically to transient truckers.
Right.
So I grew up in this kind of rooming house with transient truckers in and out. So.
I wanted to ask, because that was something that kind of stuck out to me, is like in this day and age, you wouldn't think about dropping your grandkid off at a boarding house, right?
Not
like,
a chance.
Running a boarding house, you wouldn't think about taking in a first grader. Was that a common thing in that town?
Well, it was the town was small enough. Everybody knew everybody. They knew the history of my mother leaving town and all that sort of thing. So they were just my brother and sister would be moved around every school year. Seemed they're going to a different house to stay, just with a couple. But I was, I guess, fortunate in that I stayed in the same house
Right.
a full 8 years of grammar school, and I learned a lot living there. I just they tried to find things to keep me busy. So, this lady was a great seamstress and baker, so I learned how to bake and learned how to crochet rugs. That was one of my jobs, taking rags and rip them into strips, sewing the strips end to end, and then you crochet rag rugs out of them. She would sell them. So
You learned some skill sets.
yeah,
That's awesome.
I learned something, and because there happened to be a lot of widows in the area, I guess because I would talk to anybody, and they'd be afraid. So that became my job: rake leaves and cut grass for the widow ladies in the neighborhood.
Right.
One in particular, both the kids were scared of her because she would wear a full-length black dress and not a monocle, but glasses that clipped on her nose, just like no bows on the side, and she, hair up in the bun. But she thought I was fantastic, so I had access to her garden. So quite often on the way to school, in season, I'd get pick things out of her garden. That's what I'd take to school for lunch.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So learned to appreciate fresh stuff.
Oh, I bet you did.
Out of curiosity, where at was that you grew up?
Well, the town, if you are familiar with this area, if you draw a triangle between Beecher, Peatone, and Money, you kind of, better description, where the proposed Peatone airport is supposed to be, that's where I grew up on the farm. The town was Beecher.
Okay.
People. Yeah.
So modern day, that's what, hour and a half south of
give or
the
take.
center of Chicago?
Real close. That's also closer to Indiana too, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, Route 1 is the major road that goes through town, and I think it's 5 or 6 miles from the Indiana state line.
Okay. It's funny, like, reading through this. Like, in my mind, I picture like deep southern Illinois. Like,
same. That's what I thought.
You don't think of it being that
Right by us.
rural down there, but
it is
different generation. Well, I mean,
well, no, it was. We were an oddity with the how far, with no running water and that sort of thing. Most had converted well before that. Again, my grandfather had little to no money, and he was a sharecropper, and we had dairy cattle and occasionally hogs. We'd raise everything. We had chickens all the time. Sometimes we'd raise geese, Canada geese, for butcher and sell them, or ducks or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was, there was still one farm or one house near town that, even when I was in grammar school, didn't even have a car or electricity. But most everybody was living in the modern age by then.
Right.
So anyway, get back online. Where was I in the story? Anyway, so a lot of experiences. One of the difficult things, because my mother abandoning us, this town kind of turned against her and us and my brother and sister and myself, and I was always told, yeah, you're going to be nothing just like your mother was, and it, you know,
What a thing to tell a young kid,
well,
right?
and they were a number, and they wouldn't let their kids play with me.
Oh,
So I learned to do things to entertain myself. And,
right.
so then I was a real horrible student. Sought attention in whatever way I could, I guess. And some of the notable stories there is, at one time, this was later in probably 5th grade, I was reading a book on tying nooses. I just found it fascinating that it was properly noose has 13 coils, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because I was a troublemaker in the classroom, they'd quite often sit me at the back. So I was sitting back there practicing tying nooses with the Venetian blind cords.
Okay.
So they called my sister and thought I was suicidal. And, no, I'm just practicing tying a noose.
Just bored, just trying to check some things out.
So yeah, it's so the whole town was not the friendliest to me or whatever. To full disclosure, when my mother left town, she left town with her cousin's husband,
Okay.
and he had 4 kids.
Right.
So there were the other kids' moms and remarried, so they grew up in a kind of a complete household in town.
Right.
So
So he left 4 kids, and your mom left 3 kids.
right.
Right.
Yeah. And what I always found is interesting because I did go to parochial school and I'm kind of early in life developed this. I believe in God very strongly.
Yeah.
Organized religion, maybe not so much.
Right.
Here's all these wonderful church people that are pushing his abandoned kids aside, pushing them aside, that sort of thing. So, but a lot of crazy stories about that. When I was old enough, I would not only pick vegetables or fruit from the gardens and stuff. I never liked taking a lunch, so either I'd go walk back home to the rooming house, but I should the family house. But anyway, and she'd fix lunch, or later then I would work in the cafeteria to be able to get free lunch, hot meals at school.
Right. Yeah. You had to do something to eat, right?
Do something. So yeah. And anyway, like I said last night, I don't sleep much. I was awake much of the night thinking about all the things I should probably document for my grandkids that someday they can laugh at what the old man did. So, but yeah, like I said, I was a bad student. Part of that was I'm legally blind in one eye. It doesn't mean I can't see, but there are legal requirements to put you over the limit. So,
right.
And I had very poor vision. They didn't do much to help me there, so I literally couldn't see what was on the blackboard. I never did homework, mostly because the lighting in the room was very both the rooming house and the farmhouse. I literally couldn't read a book at night, so
Right.
I learned to get by on what I remembered from class, and it used to really frustrate the teachers because some more than others, because I would ace tests. I could take a test very well, so I went all the way through school without doing much homework. So
It reminds me of somebody else I know.
Don't look at me.
I'm looking at him. He was the same way. He hated school, but he was always so smart that he could basically do what you did. Didn't do the homework, didn't do the readings, but he could still pass.
well, you might. I don't know if you ever had the experience, but they would accuse me of cheating on tests. And I would laugh at the beginning. One day in particular, I actually said to the teacher, "Who was I cheating from?" Because everybody around me had poorer great scores than I did on this. How could I be the one cheating?
Hey, you're doing better than they are. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's I'll get ahead a little bit. Quite honestly, I didn't do well in school until I got in the helicopter school or aviation schools in the military.
So what made you join the military?
I fought like hell, but I had to go anyway. No.
that good old draft.
Yep.
Oh, you got drafted. Okay.
I did. I was drafted. So yeah, it was when I did get my draft notice. I had bought my first brand new car on my 19th birthday. Muscle car. I thought it was pretty hot stuff, and that was in October. By January, I was in the Army. So
Okay.
When I got my draft notice, I was working at a place in Harvey that had government contracts, and they said, "Well, we can get you deferment." And my mother said, "She said, well, don't do that. Your dad did that." And then my brother and sister were born before he was drafted. They said they got him anyway, and now he had 2 kids at home. So get it over with, go in. So
you were talking to your mom at the time?
Actually, when I was 15, my grandfather, he had multiple health issues, couldn't farm anymore. So he said, "Well, I'm moving out. You got to have to find a place to live." By then, my mother had moved back to the area with my stepfather.
Right.
So I lived with them. They at the time were living in Richmond Park, and so went there. And anyway, so when she convinced me not to get any draft deferments, I went in the military, and when I went to the induction, I really wasn't too concerned when I got it because by that time I'd fallen off a hayrack and fractured a vertebrae in my back. I'd been diagnosed with ulcers and heart murmur. I was legally blind in one eye. I said, "You're not going to take me."
Right.
Guess what?
They took you.
Yeah.
They needed bodies at that
needed
point.
Cannon fodder.
Yeah.
Go, and it doesn't matter. Yeah, with the eye checks, they even sent me from the induction center to a different civilian office to making sure I wasn't cheating on a test.
Right.
So, anyways, I don't know. So I'll go back. I'll regress a little bit to the school days. Some things I would do to entertain myself is I found out how to easily get in school,
right,
in the school building when nobody's around. Okay?
Oh, that's a good one.
So they would for away basketball games in particular. I never had I think they charged a quarter to go, whatever it was. I didn't have any money, but so I would go over to school, walk up to school, and open the school, and all the kids would come there collecting for the bus, go in and out of school, use the bathrooms or whatever, and the teacher or the coaches or whatever, they'd come and go in and out of school, and after everyone was gone, I'd lock the school back up and go back to the rooming house.
You're a man of the people, Ralph.
And after, I didn't think about it at the time, I think about it as an adult. None of the teachers ever questioned how the school got opened or locked back up again.
It was you. It wasn't staff member security. It was Ralph just taking care of business. I love it.
So, some of the crazy things I did is incredible. You make me think. Because they wanted me out of the classroom as much as possible, because I was a disruption all the time. And one time they used to have me count the money because at the time they would pass a collection basket. So I would count the coins and the money and roll the coins and all that sort of thing during class time. At least I wasn't bothering anybody in the classroom.
Right.
So, but one day, a windy day, and the flag wrapped around the flagpole. And I said, "Teacher, I'll go fix it." Well, a typical flagpole, I don't know how tall they are, 30 feet, whatever it is.
Yeah, give or take.
So he said, "Yeah, go ahead." So I shooed up the flagpole, climbed all the way to the top, and I unwrapped the flag, and I got it all free, and I started back down. And I got my jeans caught on a screw that was sticking out.
Oh, no.
So I was 2/3 of the way up the flagpole, stuck on the flagpole. I couldn't get my leg loose. I couldn't get down. Nobody cared that I was up there or knew that I was up there.
Just hanging out from the flagpole.
Hanging on the flagpole.
For dear life.
Doing my pole dance, yeah. But, so eventually I ripped my jeans enough to get down.
Oh, there you go. And lived.
And lived.
Oh, Ralph. So you were 9. So then fast forward, you were 19 in the Army. And you thought there's no way they're taking you, and they took you anyways.
Well, even at the induction center, before that, I was working at Goldblatt's department store, and there was a guy who worked part-time, and I found out he was a career Navy guy. So I'd give him shit all the time about being a loser lifer in the military. And so I report the induction center. I didn't realize that's where he worked. Okay.
Oh, no.
So at one point, they got everybody, you got to pee in a jar. They were just having people putting litmus paper in the jars. So he said, get over here. So he assigned me to that job. I was supposed to do that. So I lasted about 5 minutes. I was pouring people's jars of pee together. He said, get the hell out of here.
You're doing a science experiment. I love it.
So anyway, they took me down to, from there they took us to O'Hare, and first time on an airplane, they flew down to Louisiana. And
Right.
They started basic training there, and
Did you know what job you're going into at the time?
hell no.
You
I
just going through basic.
Well, the military at the time would give you this long questionnaire and say, what would you like to do? They give you aptitude test, that sort of thing.
Right.
And I said, what would you like to do in the Army? I said, I want to ride my Harley. And they didn't think they had a job for me then.
They got rid of their Harleys by then.
Yeah, they did. So I got down to basic training, and I ended up in a basic training unit. At least the squad I was in, all draftees. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna send me to Vietnam? You're not. What are you gonna do to me? It was
Right.
kind of the
Mindset.
yeah. And the guy I befriended was a smoke jumper from Oregon that got drafted.
Oh, okay.
And, you're supposed to walk around. You're not supposed to walk anywhere, supposed to run. And he and I were walking somewhere, and drill sergeant came up and said, drop down, give me 20. And he looked at the drill sergeant, he says, which hand, what?
Well, he's doing one-handed push-ups. Let's go, yeah.
He had 20 one hand, 20 with right, 20 with left. Drill sergeant walked away, just left us alone after that.
Which hand do you want?
Real quick, what year was that?
I was actually reported in January of 66.
January 66. So early on in Vietnam, relatively.
Yeah, relatively. The unit I ended up with was the first Chinook unit that went to Vietnam, and I was the first set of rotation. They'd spent there a year, so it was a year after the first Chinooks got to Vietnam. So it's hard to say when Vietnam started because it started so much earlier.
Right.
And it just kind of kept escalating. And I think back to when Kennedy got shot, and I was actually in high school, and all us guys looked at each other and said, okay, Johnson's in charge, we're going to Vietnam for sure now. So we kind of accepted that. So anyway,
Right.
Go back, basic training was just because of a shitty attitude. I didn't, not a bad attitude, I just didn't give a shit. So,
Right.
No matter what they tried, then I made it kind of a challenge to see what I could get out of doing. But one I did not really plan it, but because I had a previous back injury, I hurt my back so I could barely walk. One of the big things in basic training that everybody hates is what they call it going out of bivouac, a 20-mile march.
Yeah.
You set up your tent, all that kind of stuff. And they should have actually recycled me and had me restart basic, but they just wanted to push me through. The company commander said, okay, we're going to take you out on a truck. I rode out on the food truck. He had somebody else set up my tent for me. Rode back, come here on the truck.
Oh, you had it made.
Yeah, I talked my way out of the gas chamber, convinced him I'd already done it, so I never went through the gas chamber.
You were a little knucklehead back then, huh?
Called social engineering. You learned that early.
Oh yeah, brother. Hell yeah. Engineering.
So, as a matter of fact, I didn't even do the white glove inspection on the M14 at the end of base where you turn in your weapon.
Yeah.
I got through that without even having it inspected. So, but anyway, then it sent me to Fort Rucker, Alabama. In basic training, people talk about what they signed up for. And there were a number of guys that signed up, or several guys that decided to be helicopter mechanics. And another guy was, he said, I'm going to be a pilot. He says, I'm going to be laughing at you guys down there in the mud while I fly over in my helicopter.
Right.
Yeah, okay, whatever. So, and he was kind of a jerk about it. So, and his name was Peter Quick. So in the military, when they have mail call, they do it the last name first name, middle name last, right?
Quick Peter.
So yeah, he gets his drill sergeant, quick, Peter, whatever. So
Busting his chops on that one.
I never forgot his name. I'll come around to him later as we talk.
Okay, perfect.
So anyway, they sent me to Fort Rucker and basic aviation maintenance school. And they were trying to push so many people through, the schools couldn't accommodate, so you end up what they call a holding company for sometimes a week or two at a time. And after I finished the first one, go out there and you kind of hang around to try to stay out of trouble, and they'd come up with this list of to call out in the morning where they call you up, give you your orders, and all the guys from my basic training unit were kind of disappearing after the first one. Some of them went on to other schools like cooks and MPs and that sort of thing.
Right.
Well, then they sent me to a Huey maintenance school. Okay, I'll go to another helicopter or aviation school.
So did you know what job you're doing then, or when did you find out?
That's when you learn to be a Huey mechanic. Okay,
Right.
So after that was okay. No, you still had no orders. I went to this other holding companies, and after that they shipped me to Fort Eustis, Virginia, to be a Chinook mechanic.
Okay.
By then, I was literally the only one that I'm aware of out of my basic training unit that stayed in helicopter maintenance.
Okay.
So I went through Chinook school, and like I referred earlier, I was a bad student until I got there, and I found something really intriguing. I really fascinated, loved helicopters. So the worst I did was second in my class.
Look at you go.
So,
Just when you apply yourself, right? Like something that actually interests you.
yeah, really.
Yeah, right.
Well, and the other thing is, and I hate to say it sometimes because it sounds egotistical, but I got through, was I intelligent enough to get through school relatively easy. I think, Carrie, you might be able to relate to that. When school it becomes boring, okay?
Yeah, agreed.
You go back you go to the next grade, and the first whatever period of time, they go over what you learned the year before. Like, oh, come on. What the only problem with that is you start thinking you know all the stuff, so you don't pay attention to what the teacher's saying. When they do introduce something, you don't necessarily catch that all the time.
Right.
But the aviation schools is all foreign material. They didn't waste time. You better, I wanted to learn it also. So the hands-on thing, it was not just theory. You actually did stuff. So.
Right. And that's what probably really interested you.
Yeah, it really did. And so after finished the Chinook school, that's when they gave me my orders that I was going to Vietnam, and they just said 1st Aviation Brigade. I went home on leave for a couple weeks. Sent me flew over to Vietnam, stopped in Hawaii and stopped in Guam, finally landed in Vietnam, and they put us on these military buses with, like a prisoner bus with the grates over the windows and all this stuff. All right, now, okay, this is starting to get real.
Real, yeah.
And we go through Saigon, and of course, everybody talked about the little coolie hats that the Vietnamese wore in their pajamas, and everybody looked like that. So to me, they're all Viet Cong at the time,
right?
But I thought I was still pretty cool. And they then sent me another little waiting area for a day or two, and while I was there, they tried to find something to keep you busy. And they said, okay, you got guard duty tonight. Okay, what does that mean? Well, you're going up in that bunker with a machine gun. Shit, I never saw a machine gun.
Didn't have this in my aviation training.
So I did that. And then they sent me to eventually put me on a Chinook to fly to my company that I was going to be assigned to. And we stopped at the battalion headquarters to drop off some of the guys. Well, the weather was too bad, so they decided we had to spend the night there, and okay, monsoon season, everything's flooded, and
Right.
they trying to figure, well, where are we going to put these? There's a couple of us. And he said, where are we going to put these guys? And he said, well, guys that are going out on patrol, they could use their hooches because they won't be there overnight. That was actually on my 20th birthday.
So for hooches that people don't understand, is that like housing?
Yeah, just right. Just kind of a shack.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But so I entertained myself my 20th birthday. I was taking a survival knife and trying to hit the rats that were running in the rafters. But and even so, I'm kind of still okay. I can handle this. Well, until the next morning, only 2 of the guys that went on patrol came back.
Oh no.
So yeah, so that became very real.
Very, yeah.
Very, very real. So I then ended up going to Vung Tau when people that have been to Vung Tau. Well, that was the in-country rest and recuperation center for people that were stationed other places. Well, that was my home base. That was just where the aircraft was parked. That doesn't mean I was there very often. But,
Right.
You know,
Right.
So when I got there and I had an infection in my toe, and they sent me to the medics to take care of that. So it took a couple of days. Literally the first day I reported to this maintenance hangar. I was in the building maybe 15, 20 feet, and I hear somebody say, and they want to get on a flight status. So I turned and went into that office, and the guy, and I said, yeah, I do. He said, okay. He assigned me to an aircraft and told me where to go and meet up with the other guys that were, there's the Chinook in a combat situation flies with 3 guys in the back and 2 pilots. 3 guys in the back. We all just rotated jobs. Technically, one's called a flight engineer, one a crew chief, the other a gunner.
Right.
And depending on your rank, you're supposed to be one or the other, but we just worked as a team.
Right.
So I got to that, got to my helicopter, talked to the guys, get to know them a little bit. And, but, you know, I really had no training with the flight portion of it or anything like that. And they showed me what the mounted M60 machine gun looks like. And, okay, so.
You're like, I can figure this out, right?
Yeah, sure. It's got butterfly triggers and whatever. So, I don't know. They didn't do much training initially, but like a week or so later, they took us out and said, okay, the pilots took myself and one other guy, we're going to give you some training, see if you can hit a target. So they put a 55-gallon drum, floated out in the South China Sea, and they were making low-level passes at 130 knots, and you're supposed to try to hit it with a machine gun and drive flying by.
Oh, that has to be difficult.
It was impossible. It was just an intimidation thing. You think you're pretty hot shit. No, you're not.
Yeah, right. Bring you back down to earth.
Yeah. So I don't remember. It was one of the very early days. It sometimes seems like it was the first day I was assigned, but it was very early on in my assignment. Somebody came by and said, "Are you the gunner on this aircraft?" And I said, "Yeah, because that's at the lowest levels."
Right.
They said, "Okay, come with me." So he takes me to another aircraft. He says, "Okay, you're a tail gunner." Okay. So the Chinook has a cargo ramp that lowers in the back. So he sat me. So you're sitting back here, put a helmet on, hook your mic up, and they hand me a handheld M60. Okay, a new twist, and you're going to be the tail gunner because we're going to this really hot area. So just pay attention what's going on the radio. And meanwhile, so we head out. There's 2 Army airplanes that had mid-air collisions. They were going out to try to retrieve the pilots. And we're out there, and all the radio chatter. They're talking to PADI control, which controls the artillery.
Yeah.
And there's also the offshore. The Navy was out there lobbing stuff. It was a really hot area. So now I'm scared. Okay, but I'm sitting in the back of this thing with my feet hanging off over the edge and not attached to the aircraft by any way means at all.
With an M60 in your hands?
Yeah.
Yeah. How heavy are those things? It has to be heavy.
Well, it didn't seem heavy. I just I was just scared because if you've fired a weapon on full automatic, it's hard to hold on target. We even in basic training, you fired an M14 full automatic, and you had to hold your hand on top of the barrel to keep it from climbing up.
Right.
Sorry. So I'm thinking about, okay, I'm going to be out there. Even if I do fire, this thing's probably not going to, I've never fired one, but it's got to do something like an M14 and climb up. And I'm saying, shit, if it goes up very high, I'm going to shoot holes in rotor blades. That's not a good idea either. So
you're not even strapped in. You're not anchored down. You're free flowing a M6 and the back of a helicopter moving at Mach Jesus.
Flying through a lot of ordnance coming in if you've got artillery and offshore artillery.
What's to worry about, right?
Yeah, really. But they had to pause the artillery to allow us to go in. And as soon as we were getting close to the ground, the tree line off to the right side of the aircraft, it was lit up like firecrackers all the way through. We were receiving enemy fire.
You're like a magnet in the air.
And the best thing for me, I guess, is where I was on the tail. They weren't in my line of fire. I couldn't shoot back at them, so I just sat there. And the two guys, there were two guys they had punched out one of the windows. They had two gunners on the right side, and
right,
kind of suppressed fire. We had to go and dropped off a couple guys, search team. Then we had left the area and circled, and eventually went back and picked up those two guys, and they never did find the pilots. So.
Oh man!
But meanwhile, we made it out. We made it back. We made it back to base.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kerry. The life expectancy of door gunners back then was not very long, was it?
Yeah, it was. Now there's combination. The Huey guys. Some of them were on gunships, and they got in low-level fire more often than we did. The Chinook was kind of like a multi-purpose tool.
Right.
They did have some armed Chinooks, but that I wasn't on one of those. But people say, "Well, you didn't do anything but just haul cargo." No, we did it. We did other things. Sometimes we actually did combat assaults with the the ROKs, the Koreans.
Okay.
We'd load them on, and it actually sounds stupid talking about it if you haven't been there, but we went out and did a combat assault and landed in this kind of tall grass, and they would fan out, and just like you'd see in the movies, for a perimeter around the aircraft,
yeah,
and that sort of thing. And anyway, so we did actual combat assaults, and one of the more tense things were recovering downed aircraft. We spent a lot of time picking up Hueys, mostly other aircraft too, but a lot of Hueys that either got shot down or had mechanical failures.
Right.
So you go out there, especially the ones that got shot down. They just got shot down. You're going out there to hook them up on your cargo hook to get them out of there.
Right.
Well, guess what? Somebody's out there doesn't like you, but anyway.
Right.
So yeah. We did a lot of that.
Got a lot of attention you didn't want.
A lot of attention. As a matter of fact, as far as I know, my crew and I set the record for the most number of downed aircraft retrieved in one day with one helicopter.
No shit. What was it?
It was only 7, but it was...
Only 7? We only retrieved 7 in one day. Don't be so modest, Ralph. That's fucking awesome.
Anyway, it just... Again, it was kind of tense when you're going in there, hooking up, and now you had to hover to hook up, to the helicopter that was downed. So you're a stationary target. For the most part, Chinook was so big, the Viet Cong didn't know where to shoot at it, so they typically shoot at the middle of it. So there was usually, unless we were doing troop movements, typically wasn't anybody in the middle of it. It was the flight engineer would be at the back, the pilots and the crew chief and the gunner were up front. So a lot of bullets went. We just made a hole in the aircraft, no big deal.
And you were in the tail, so
it depended either in the tail or one side or the other.
Right.
And until and the aircraft's extremely loud inside, very loud. It's the fact that you can't. If we were the distance we are now, there's no way you could communicate. We couldn't hear each other. So,
right.
but you could hear a bullet going through. It was.
I bet you did.
Well, it actually sounded like someone slamming a door.
Really?
Yeah, it was really strange. So
How was the armor on those Chinooks?
no,
Nothing.
there was minimal
No.
armor around a couple critical flight control hydraulic actuators. That was and under the pilot seats.
So other than that, it's punching through.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
It was like
great. Nothing like being in a massive aircraft in the air, just hovering, just taking rounds.
One day we were not on a recovery, we were just flying along, and we all heard a round penetrate the aircraft. And so the three of us in the back are okay. First thing you do is look around. Didn't hit anything critical,
Right.
Massive oil leak, whatever. And we're looking and looking and looking, and we were actually. I have to preface it. I was actually on the right door again, and for some strange reason, okay, God was looking out for me again. I had leaned as far out as I could. But most of my body was out of the aircraft. I was looking underneath the aircraft when this round hit, and after we couldn't find it, we actually went back to where I was, and there was a bullet that had penetrated right between where my feet were.
Oh.
And because I was leaned so far out, it missed me completely. Went out on top of the air.
Oh, you have guardian angels for sure, brother. You have guardian angels.
Yeah. So yeah, it was. And so yeah, you're right. God was looking out for me. So
Right.
So where you said you were out of Vung Tau?
yeah,
What part of Vietnam was that in?
Vung Tau is in south of Saigon. The Vietnam was segregated into 4 core areas. It was 3 and 4 core areas.
Okay.
The southern half of the country.
So a lot of work down in like the Delta area.
A lot of it. We went as far north, typically as Tay Ninh Mountain, and it would start getting mountains from there on. But a lot of what we did was it would flood much of the year. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys do a lot of work with 9th ID down there?
We did some, yeah.
Okay. I just know that was a big operating area for the 9th was down there in the Delta.
Yeah. They were pretty good to work with. They got a little bit of more experience, but I believe they were the ones that, sometimes you have survivor's guilt type of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
We were on a big mission with another aircraft from our unit and taking loads out and what we typically do is pick up a 105 howitzer and a gun crew and take them out in the field and with a pallet of ammo and drop the pallet of ammo and the 105 and the crew. And we were going back into this pickup location, do our next load, and I was flying with the battalion executive officer on board. He said, I have to make a phone call. We're about out needing fuel, so we'll just go back and get fuel. And we were about 5 minutes out. The other aircraft I was working with went in to do that load, and distress call came over the radio. Maybe might not have been the 9th, but anyway, somebody had been playing John Wayne. They'd pulled a pin on a grenade and wrapped a rubber band around the handle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they dropped it in the aircraft, and it blew up.
Oh, God.
That was supposed to have been my flight. So yeah.
Again, someone looking out for you.
Well, yeah, but again, to this day, I have some survivor guilt.
Right.
So
Did that helicopter go down then?
it would happen on the ground, fortunately.
Oh, good. Okay.
It only killed one guy and maimed a few.
Yeah.
But yeah, we worked with pretty much anybody that was in the 3 and 4 core area, especially when I got there, because there were very few Chinooks in the southern half of the country. The Army wanted to showcase their 1st Infantry up in the north, and I'm sorry, I said 1st Infantry. I meant 1st Cav. The ones with their patch, the big patch,
Right.
the black for the horse they
Yes.
never rode.
It's like the horse they never rode.
And and the line is for the line they never crossed, and yellow is the reason why. But anyway, so yeah, it was so bad with the Army supporting them. We actually had a guy stationed in Saigon to confiscate parts that we needed before they got sent up north.
Right.
I just derailed my train. I forgot where I was going with it. But,
Well, let's take a quick break then.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a good point. We'll come right back to this.
okay.
So you talked about Quick Peter or Peter Quick.
Yeah.
Can we touch back on that real quick?
Well, yeah. Well, actually, I feel guilty to even telling the story, but while we were in Vietnam, we were out. We would do a variety of things. One, we were sent out to retrieve a mortar platoon that had been out in the field for an extended period. So,
Okay.
And this is in the monsoon season. Everything's muddy, and these poor guys, they had lived in bomb craters, and so, they're sitting in the mud and would.
Ugh.
So they start dragging, and here comes a guy, 81 millimeter mortar base plate, and then if anybody's familiar with it, it's huge. It's like a huge manhole cover type of thing. And he drags it on the aircraft, and look, and it's Peter Quick. I didn't really talk to him. All I said was, "Hey, Peter, how do you like my helicopter?" And I felt so bad after I said it. That was pretty mean. So the guy had been.
Did he laugh? Do you remember?
No, he didn't laugh. He didn't see a lot of humor.
Oh, I think it was pretty funny.
But,
He probably looked up slowly under the brim of his helmet and just gave you that glare.
Did he recognize you?
I don't know. I didn't pursue it beyond that. But,
Right.
But part of it is, don't shoot off your mouth at how cool you are compared
Right.
to somebody else. You never know where life's going to take you.
Right. Especially in that type of circumstances of everyone being deployed to war at that time. Like, oh, yeah, you guys are all be in the mud, and I'll be in my helicopter. Well, tables turn, brother.
Yep.
Tables turn.
So anyway, I mean, there's things to talk about in Vietnam for forever, probably. But and I really, it was unusual in the fact that there were days you'd go out and wishing somebody'd shoot at you.
Right.
You could shoot back. It would kind of relieve the tension, kind of thing. But anyway, we got through that and made pretty good friends over there. One of my friends over there actually happened to be from Romeoville.
Really?
Yeah.
Small world.
He lived. His parents lived right off 53 north. North of Lewis in that area.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And he says, "What are you gonna do when you get back?" I said, "Hell, I don't know. I'll probably go back to have to get a bike again because I literally traded my 47 Harley knucklehead chopper to a guy that had a 54 Corvette that we made an even trade."
Yeah, right.
And somebody that Kerry knows. But anyway, then he says, "Well, why don't you go to Lewis College with me? That's where I'm going to go get my airframe and power plant license." Okay, I got nothing else to do. I'll do that.
You're like, oh, what? I got plans now.
So I enrolled at Lewis. And at the time, they had a 12-month program.
Right.
Full time, went to school all day, every day, 5 days a week, and got out of there in 1968, near the end of '68, and while I was there, the American Airlines they sent a recruiting team out and I was recruited. Went through all the interview process, and I was supposed to go to get a physical, pre-employment physical, and for some reason I can't explain why, I drove past Midway Airport and I saw a building that said Chicago Helicopter Airways. So I stopped. This is like, I don't know, 7 o'clock in the morning, something like that. Walked up and knocked on a door, and of course they weren't open, but a guy coveralls comes to the door and he asked me what I wanted. And I said, "Well, you looking to hire anybody?" He said, "No." So, and we just started talking, and after a period of time, he said, "Are you busy? Can you stay around? I'd like you to meet the vice president."
No
Okay.
way.
So I stayed around. They hired me that day. I reported for work the next Monday. Never went to American Airlines for my pre-employment physical.
No way.
Yeah. Well, in curiosity, my whole life, I have not once got a job through a job application. I've always had people. It was word of mouth or just running into people. It would, and it's
Social engineering at its finest, ladies and gentlemen.
well, and I'd like to think that if you work hard and you do things that and you listen for opportunities and and follow your gut sometimes.
Right.
Again, I can't explain why I stopped there, but I did. So, it was a little kind of funny story. A little bit. The Chinook is a very easy helicopter to fly compared to some of the smaller ones.
Right.
So I'd flown a Chinook a very little bit in Vietnam, on test flights and things. Pardon me.
You're fine.
And we get to Chicago helicopter. After I was there a while. I was a little bit of a smart ass, but I was also trying to impress people. So the chief inspector didn't really like me a whole lot, and because my attitude, I guess. But he assigned me the job of rigging the flight controls on a Bell 47 helicopter, and I said, okay. He didn't tell me any more than that, so I just got out the books and I went through the whole procedure, and whatever, 6 or 8 hours later, I went back. I said, I'm done. And he got all red faced. He was angry. He said, you can't be done. And well, so he went over and checked everything, and he couldn't find a mistake anywhere. And I didn't find out till much later that before that, he had people convinced it was so difficult, he was the only one in the company could do it.
Oh, was he wrong?
So he was his intent was going to set me up and get rid of me because I screwed something up. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, was he wrong?
I think in life, just kind of keep a positive attitude.
Yes.
And if somebody, especially if you think somebody trying to do shit, just keep smiling and do your thing.
Right. Don't let those people bring you down.
Don't lower yourself to their level.
100%. You took the high road, as you have your whole life.
Because I don't like fighting. I'm a candy ass. But anyway.
I don't like fighting candy ass.
But even that, I've always told people, once you raise your voice, even in an argument, you've lost.
I was just gonna, 100%.
So it disarms people when you don't. You just stay focused, and
you catch more bees with honey than you do vinegar.
You got it.
Yes, sir. I live by that. I love it.
Yeah. So I then worked at Chicago Helicopter Airways, and I don't know. I've put some people ill at ease above me in various companies, and eventually that they were then forming a group to just overhaul components, transmissions, and things like that.
Yeah.
And the various shifts at the time, they took one of us from each. There was only 3 of us put back there to do this, and we were kind of the misfits, the people that nobody wanted. Okay, so we worked. As a matter of fact, one was a very good friend. We're still friends. He ended up being a Lockport fireman after that.
Okay.
So, but
what's his name? Do you remember?
It's Chuck Kwasniewski.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yes,
That's a hell of a name.
I was going to say.
I still stay in touch with him. So,
Love it.
Yeah. But anyway, so we got a cohesive unit, and I've always felt the challenge for me was see how much you could get done and do it well quickly. Okay.
Yes.
Efficiency is important. So we got to be very good at our job. And if there was a time when they would have a line crew, the aircraft come in for overhaul. There's one crew would take it apart, then we would overhaul components, then they'd send it back out, and they would put them back on. And they got so busy, they said, okay, you overhaul crew, you're going to do the whole thing. So it involved overhauling the transmission, all the mechanical components other than the engine, and take it apart, do the inspection on the airframe, put it all back together. And we did it in 11 days. It was normally a 3-week process for you.
Oh, you guys knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. So I can't say I didn't pre-plan everything, how the work laid out.
You know how to work the game, brother.
But, of course, thinking I was doing a good thing again, I pissed people off. They said, well, you're making us look bad. Well, and the director of maintenance at the time told the VP, well, we gave that crew the best people off all our shifts.
Yeah, a.k.a. the misfits, right? Yeah. What a jerk.
So anyway, I say Chicago Helicopter Airways and learned a lot, and there was a time it came to we were going to remanufacture or completely disassemble, overhaul, and repaint and rewire and change from a reciprocating engine to twin turbine engines on a Sikorsky S-58. So I ended up with responsibility for overhauling the components and final assembly and flight test. The first one we sent out to somebody else to repaint, and they said, well, the company decided, well, we're going to start painting them ourselves, save a lot of money and that sort of thing. And they took one of the guys from the overall shop he sucked up to management. And they made him, he was going to be the painter. He picked out all the type of paint to be used, the gun, all the equipment. And I tried to ask questions. He said, you stay out of there. Well, Noel's doing all the painting. I said, okay. So bottom line is, we got to the day of painting, and it started like early in the morning, and he started painting. I walked out there, and these big blotches of paint. And I said, Noel, you're doing something wrong. And he said, I went through all the training. Get out of here. I'm doing it right. Okay?
All right.
Okay. Well, management comes in later in this mess, and they look at it, and they go ballistic. And they started yelling at me because I was supposed to be watching him. So that was one time I did kind of lose my cool, got in a heated discussion. And
rightfully so.
Yeah, and they said, you think you can do better? I said, yeah, I think I can. So, yeah, the next day they had to strip the paint off part of it, and they said, okay, try it. Now they got everybody, all the management watching me. The first time I used polyurethane paint, new paint gun on it. And I laid down a beautiful coat of paint. So, yeah, so I didn't win.
Smooth.
I became the painter.
It's like when you go to your job and you become very important at your company, you're like, oh, man, what did I do?
Yeah, that's it. You become the go-to person.
Yeah.
But end result ends up being good. Then other people learn about you. What I started to say earlier is I went through my whole career without ever submitting an application for a job. I would fill out the application after I was hired.
Yeah.
It was my reputation got me through. So,
well, you're a phenomenal worker from what you've told me.
Yeah. Again, it wasn't me. Somebody else has been guiding my life.
Yeah. Well, for good reason.
Yeah. So from there, and we did a lot of interesting work there, and I can think of all the different projects and be happy about my life and what we did. But there was a time where the tail boom for the Bell Jet Ranger, they were having problems, and they were either getting an accident or some would just get damaged, and they were a full monocoque construction, special construction.
Right.
So the management asked me if I could find a way to fix them. So I got with I'm a horrible welder, even though I had to learn to weld. I'm horrible. So I got a pilot friend and built this tail boom fixture so we could reskin or repair the tail booms. And just all kind of little projects along. I always enjoyed a challenge.
Yeah.
Well,
Looking back, you never backed down from one. I mean, you were put in that position and you excelled.
And I'm going to go way back, even before Vietnam, for the short story.
Please.
And I was out of high school, not interested in education beyond that. And I got a job at a place in Harvey, Illinois. They did school gym lockers and specialty products for things like that. So I was working there, and they put me on the afternoon shift. So I would work at a department store in the morning and work there in the afternoon. And I was there just a short time, and they came up to me and asked me if I'd take over kind of acting foreman for the afternoon shift.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am, 19 years old, and of course all the other guys in the shop were all various ages,
Yeah.
20s to 50s, a union steel shop. And they said, okay, you're in charge. I said, okay. So they just tell me what needed to be done, and I talk with the other guys, and I didn't even know how to do most of the jobs that were being done.
Right.
But it didn't take long. After a few weeks, I was called in the office and said, oh, I'm in trouble for something. They said, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? Well, you're getting more production we've ever had out of the afternoon shift. And really all it amounted to is, in retrospect, I just asked the guys what they're interested in. I'd let them, again, keep in mind, the union shop.
Yeah.
But I'd let them switch jobs. You want to learn to be a painter? Yeah, you learn to be a painter. You want to learn to do this other job? And
Yeah.
so everybody was happy.
Right.
They were all able to continue learning, and they didn't treat it as punishment to go to work.
Right.
So
They were probably excited to go to work. So at a very young age, at 19 years old, just out of high school, you already were developing your leadership skills.
I guess,
Yeah.
and it really comes back to basic philosophy in life. It's an old adage, but treat people as you'd like to be treated.
Yes.
It's not tough.
No, it's not. It's not rocket science.
No.
I think people overthink it too much.
Yeah. So.
No, that's a good philosophy to live by, honestly.
Yeah. It works. I mean,
Yes.
I can't think of a circumstance where it doesn't work.
No, you're 100% right.
You go around with a chip on your shoulder and trying to be an asshole. I'm an asshole, but it's natural. I don't have to work at it. But
Me too, brother. Me too. But I mean, at a young age, at 19 years old, you already came to that conclusion. It takes people until like their 50s, 60s till they actually realize that aspect of life. Hats off to you, sir.
So anyway, I worked at Chicago Helicopter Airways, and they were doing, among other things, the WGN traffic helicopters was their contract.
Right.
2 in the morning, 2 at night, and a new company was coming into town to take over that contract, so I was asked to go over there, and they hired me to be the vice president and the director of maintenance at the new startup company.
And how old were you at the time?
Oh, that was after Vietnam, so I was probably 75, so yeah.
Late 20s? Early 30s?
Late 20s.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was still a kid. I was still a kid.
I still am today, so what?
But I mean, you were vice president of maintenance at you're in your late 20s. That's unheard of.
You got to grow old. Nobody says you have to grow up.
100. Yes, sir. You were 100% correct.
So anyway, went with the startup company and stayed there. So bottom line, I worked at Midway Airport, one of the other 2 companies, for 18 years, I think it was. And the guy that was individual owned a second helicopter company, enjoyed life. So anyway, the helicopter company was going away, so I got into, as a matter of fact, he and a couple of guys started a helicopter insurance operation.
Okay.
And they wanted me, so my next job was to write a helicopter safety management program kind of thing. Even more than that, it was just trying to find good helicopter operators and make them better. And we actually ended up with our own insurance company for this risk management program that I wrote.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind that early I was a very poor student, not necessarily proud of the fact, but factually, I'd failed 1 semester of English in high school because I refused to do the homework. And on that topic, I almost didn't graduate high school because my Algebra 2 teacher was also a guy with student council, and I had kind of a bad attitude, and
Right.
the day before graduation, he called me out in the hallway. He said, "You know, you didn't do any homework here." I said, "Yeah, I know." He says, "And you know that your grade is not good enough to pass this course." And I didn't say anything. He says, "You know you can do the work, and I know you can do the work, and I'm not going to punish either of us by making you come back to summer school. So we're going to let you graduate."
Please get out of here. He knew what he was dealing with. He's like, I don't want to deal with Ralph anymore.
But anyway, got into the insurance. I got my insurance producer's license for all lines of insurance, and took some risk management courses, and that lasted for a while, and that went away because of personnel issues with some of the other investors. But along the way, going back to when I was in helicopter maintenance, I became friends with a guy that used to bring helicopters in for a reseller when we do maintenance, and so we just hit it off as friends. We're still friends today. He was buying the official helicopter Blue Book, which is kind of like a Kelly Blue Book or whatever for their helicopter industry.
Right.
And he said, I want you to come work with me, and I said, yeah, whatever. So anyway, when the insurance agency, if you will, closed down, one guy was, I was a minority owner of that operation. I learned very quickly about joint and several liability.
Yeah.
And we thought that one guy that was primary net worth type person, he had 2 seats on the board of trade and that sort of thing. Well, he bought up all the debts from the banks and then sued the other. So there I was in whatever, it was 1985, 86, no, about 89, $250,000 in lawsuits against me. I depleted all my personal funds.
Right.
And my wife had become unhappy and told me to move out, and so I was kind of a low point in life.
Right.
But and so the guy, the Blue Book, he says, "Well, I'm buying the Blue Book. I want you to come work with us." And we want another publication on helicopter component prices individually and costs of overhaul and all those sorts of things. And he said, "I'll give you a check to hire a lawyer and pay off this guy, give him enough to get him out of your hair so you can get your mind clear to work on it." So this project. So I started up a company for producing a book on helicopter operating costs and that sort of thing. It was sold internationally by subscription. So
Wow.
I did that, and along the way, I did some expert witness testimony and you know, a few notable things, and I'm obviously, you might be able to tell from my name, but German descent. And one time I went to New York to meet with the Israeli people at their office in New York, and I'm sitting in this conference room, and I said, it was still close enough in my mind after World War II. What are you thinking about these German kids in there talking to them? But anyway. And yeah, I've had a lot of great opportunities in life.
Oh God.
And also along with the Blue Book, had a meeting set up with the Russians were just going to start getting into commercial operations.
Okay.
And so we had a meeting in our hotel suite with a Russian contingent and the Israel Aircraft Industries and ourselves, and which was kind of interesting because first, my exposure, the Russian contingent, they are the most cold-hearted people I've ever run across in my life.
I bet.
No sign of emotion. And anyway, so yeah, a lot of crazy stories even with that. But along the way, one of the companies that had been part of the insurance program from a local area called me and said, "Hey, Ralph, why don't you come to my office?" He was out in western suburb. I said, "What for?" He said, "Well, just come out here." So I did. And I walked in, we're talking, and these other two guys walk in, and the introductions were made. He was a guy that managed a flight department in Indiana for a utility company, and one of the pilots. And the guy from the utility company says, "Well," he says, "I'm having problems with my flight department. We have some issues and some maintenance issues, others." And he said, "I've talked around the industry and asked who I should get, and your name is one that always keeps coming up." So he said, "Would you come out here?" So I went out there on a daily fee consulting basis for a while, and he said, "Would you consider coming to work for this company full time?" So I talked to people at the Blue Book, and they said, "Well, if you want to do that, we still want you to work with us, but if you can fit them both in, that works." And the utility company also said, "If you want to work with the Blue Book, that's fine. It helps us too." So
Perfect.
they both allowed me to work in both jobs at the same time. So I went to this utility company and accepted a job in end of September, and by December 1st, they moved out the guy that was a manager because of, quite honestly, because of things I was uncovering that he was being blamed for, and so they brought in a guy from the outside, and first day he arrived, this new guy, he calls me in the office. He says, "Okay, I got your resignation right here. All you got to do is sign it." I said, "I'm not going anywhere."
Right.
So anyway, fast forward with that, I stayed with it, and he tried to get me to quit, even though I was hired to be assistant manager at the time.
Right.
Because you're just going to be a mechanic. You go out there and work with it. Okay, I can do that. I've done that before too.
Yeah.
So I would do little things like on the hangar, I'd put a radio station on that I know he hated, and I'd blast the music so he'd walk out there and give me crap. I didn't like the music either, but it was
Just he didn't like it. That's all that
it.
mattered.
So and ran across some unscrupulous technician out there also, and they tried to set me up, and
Wow.
again, I took it as a challenge. I didn't do anything wrong. Go ahead, prove it.
Right. Exactly.
So maybe you go a long way into the future, and we moved and got bigger, got some corporate jets and that sort of thing. And this guy that they brought in from the outside, he actually had family connections to upper management. But anyways, I got a call. He had this guy, new manager brought in, had a medical issue with his hearing.
Right.
So he couldn't fly. He had to take some time off, and actually had some pretty serious problems. So that put me in charge of the department again. So I was managing the flight department, working with upper management, that sort of thing. And by then we had a joint operation with a steel company also. So we had an aircraft we shared with them. So there I'm giving quarterly presentations, financials, and things to the CEO of another company in addition to the utility company.
Wow.
And, they said, "Well, you got to do all the books because it was a joint venture. Utility company couldn't do it, so we set up this other company." So I'm looking and I said, "Well, okay, QuickBooks is out there. Let me try that." So,
Right.
So I set up the company, and the first time I did a quarterly for the CEO of the utility company, I just did the canned presentations out of QuickBooks. He says, "I like this. Why the hell can't our accounting department give me something like that?"
You're like a jack of all trades.
A jackass of all trades.
You should coin that trade, like that phrase.
But I've always felt if somebody else can do it, I can do it.
And you prove it.
Other than, I'll say that, especially if it involves something that function of the mind. Like I'm not a craftsman. People are much better at it than I am. So you figure out what you're good at and concentrate on that.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
100%.
Yeah, so we did a lot of things there, and that company then bought another company and actually bought a company larger than they were, based in Columbus, Ohio. So, and we started I was responsible for a pipeline patrol operation with small airplanes as well as the helicopters and the corporate jets. And a base in one in Mississippi, one in Charleston, West Virginia, one in Pennsylvania, and one in Indiana. Along the way, it's the military is very much, pilots are all officers and mechanics are all enlisted.
Yeah.
So a lot of pilots had an issue with that.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Okay, now they got to report this enlisted guy that shouldn't be in charge, and they're not in charge of anything, kind of an attitude. And they had two, and talking about that, one was a Marine presidential pilot for a while.
Okay.
So a little bit of an ego.
Oh,
Not much, but a little bit.
just a little touch of an ego.
Yeah, a little bit. But and then comes time for reviews. So I've always felt that reviews should be honest.
100%.
So I was very honest with them and told them where they could improve. And the Führer, like as an officer in the military, if you get something other than excels in every category, it's like the kiss of death.
Right.
So they had a hard time with that. So anyway, so yeah, there was an effort there. It seems like I've always encouraged some types of people to be after me.
Yeah.
Like this small helicopter company, a startup helicopter company, when things are going south, I actually mentioned in my book, I think, is we were on, because of lawsuits and stuff started flying around. And he says, I've always felt threatened by you. I said, you owned the company. How would I threaten you? I could never figure out the mentality behind that.
Right.
Other than his own insecurity, he said it wasn't my issue. So
right.
So anyway, so I learned a lot at the utility company, and we actually started working with technology and equipped the helicopter with technology could air sampling, and we had a combination thermal imaging unit for you could actually pick up natural gas as a thermal image because it shows up as cold,
right,
as a leak.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Rather than most people use thermal imaging for hot stuff, always find cold stuff with it, along with air sampling and that sort of thing for hydrocarbons, which it actually evolved into working with drone companies also, trying to incorporate that into drones.
Right.
And unfortunately, I had to retire before that became fully functional, but all the technology worked, but not incorporating the drones. But I look back at my life, and I've been so fortunate to have so many opportunities, so many different directions.
Ralph, you have a fascinating life, and I could talk to you guys for hours. But I do want you to tell me the story about the farm kid story. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we're almost there. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. All right. I don't want to rush you.
No, that's okay. So at this utility company, there was a problem with the aircraft, the jets and any sophisticated aircraft have warning systems. And we had a problem with one of the thrust reverser lights was saying was unsafe condition. Well, we went through all the mechanical things and we knew it was functioning properly, but the warning light was malfunctioning.
Right.
So I canceled the flight with the CEO. And some people were very unhappy with me. They said, well, it's working. Yeah, we do. But then you don't know if it failed if the warning light's not working.
Right, exactly. So, why risk it?
Right. So then at one point they said, well, you got to go and talk to Mr. So-and-so about that because, you're reporting up through him. Okay. So I told him the story. So I told him what had happened. I said, hey, I'm just a dumbass farm kid, which I've used that line for my whole life. And he said, I ran nuclear facilities. I'd hire all the dumbass farm kids I could find because they knew how to get shit done.
Get it done.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was your whole life, Ralph. I feel like from listening to you, reading your book, phenomenal. Phenomenal.
But It's just a mindset.
Yes.
Yeah, people can. Matter of fact, in that vein, my younger son's done a lot of remodeling in his house. Like, gutted the kitchen or bathroom and does it all and does a nice job. And I said, Brian, how'd you learn all this stuff? Because I didn't teach you how to do plumbing and that sort of thing. You know, Dad, you taught me the most important thing.
Yes.
Is how to figure things out.
Problem solving.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people don't teach their children that. Right. And that's a big part of life.
It is. Because it all can, just take it one step at a time and figure out how to solve the problem. So.
Right. You might be a jackass of all trades, sir,
Yeah.
but you are a master at solving problems. You're a master at solving problems.
Had a good life.
Oh,
Not
wonderful
over yet.
life. No, it is not. There's more to come with you. I know that. Way more to come. But we appreciate you coming on the show, and your story was phenomenal. Your book is phenomenal. For you guys out there that haven't seen it yet or read it yet, please check it out. It's just another farm kid. You're not just another farm kid. I know that for a fact, sir.
Where can they find the book?
And when we talked about doing this, it really wasn't for me to plug the book. I appreciate so much what you and Carrie have done with your lives. I have so much respect for you guys. So
it's mutual. We have so much respect for you. But where if anyone wants to read your book, where could they find it?
It's on Amazon.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Check it out. You guys are not going to be disappointed. I promise you. Thank you for tuning in for us. Thank you for listening to Ralph. We'll probably have him back on because it sounds like he has way more stories that I want to hear for sure.
Whatever. I like to talk.
Well, we appreciate
we
you guys.
like to listen. So we appreciate you coming on, Ralph, making the trip out here. We appreciate you guys for listening. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Just do us a favor, give us a like, subscribe, share, tell a friend, tell family, send it around.
See you guys in the next time.